Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We're going to be finishing off this image that I started in Masterclass today. Let's pop in and have a look. So guys, a couple of weeks ago I did a masterclass for Pegasus colouring. This actual image, comes out of the Four Seasons colouring book that was published by them, and the images are by an artist called Fafahe. Now I really love these images, and this is the image that I decided to do for the masterclass. So if you're interested in seeing how I did the water and the lovely dress there by her, you will have to check out the masterclasses, so I'll pop the link for that in the description below there for you. So today we're actually going to finish colouring up the image, so we're going to start after all this part of it's done, and I'm going to complete that image. So a lot of people who may have been following that in the masterclass would like to see the finished image, so I've gone ahead and done the rest of the image for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It is a beautiful image and I really love how it ended up coming out. So this image is printed on just marker paper, and I'm using COPIC markers here, which is what I've done at the start as well there. I'm using some EO4 and I'm just going to go into the shadow areas with this one and mark this out. If you'd like a little bit more in-depth tutorials and things like that on skin, pop over to Patreon and have a look there. I'll pop the link for that in the description as well. I do a lot more in-depth videos through there for patrons only, so you can have a look at that. I'm going to go in and mark out the face as well here and just pop in some shadows for the face and start to mark out some of the shapes and things for the face as well. So I'll pop a colour list in the description as well for you guys to check that out. I will be posting it on Patreon, but it will be free to everyone, so you can pop over and download it even if you're not a patron. Just increase the volume there on the mic, sorry about that, but I will continue on doing this outlining. I just wanted to say too, if you haven't subscribed and you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you subscribe and you click on the little bell, you'll actually get notifications when I upload new videos as well. And also when I go live, we are doing a live colour along at the moment, so it's something that you will get notifications for as well. I'm just making sure that I come down here and do the hand, and I'm also going to mark out a little bit of the area under the hand there so you can actually see it through the water a little bit as well, but I will do that at a later stage. I'm going to come over the top of that now with some E11, and I'm going in and just sort of spreading out the colour around on top of that previous colour and making those areas now a little bit larger, so just widening them up and coming towards the whiter areas of the page. So just doing the face now still, and I'm just trying to, I call it fuzz out, make the previous colour a little bit fuzzy so that the next colour will go over the top. The reason that I'm doing that is so that we get a nice blend rather than just a direct line from one colour to the next. So we haven't got a lot of skin area, so it's going to be quite quick to finish this off. I'm doing E21 now, and I'm going over the top of the previous colour, and I'm also just coming on the outside edge of that colour as well to make those areas a little bit larger. I'm going to start to make some shapes now in the face as well so that we can see where those shadow areas are and where the highlight areas are going to be. So I'm going to come in with some E00 and I'm going to go over the remainder of these areas. I'm not going to use my E000 at this stage. I'm going to go in and put in some blush first, and then I'll use some E000 after that. So just covering over all of the previous areas that we've done, and also coming into those really highlight areas and bringing this colour out and around as well. So I've got some R20 and I'm going to put some blush colour in the cheeks. I'm just going to sort of lay my marker sort of on the side a little bit and sort of flick that colour out onto those areas. Putting a little bit in the eyeshadow areas as well, just to give the eyes a little bit of colour. I'm going to go over the top of this with some E000 to blend that out nicely, so there's no direct or really prominent line between the colours. So it depends on what type of paper that you are using to whether you actually need another layer. With this particular paper I'm using, I'm not going to do another layer. I think that the colour is quite nice and I'm happy with that cover. Sometimes with different types of paper you may need a few layers to get it nice and smooth and how you want it, so it's up to you. So really just go by judgment. So I'm going to start on the hair now. I'm just using some simple browny blonde hair for this one. I'm going to use some E15 for the shadow areas, and I'm going to mark out those areas and do some little lines from that area out directionally how the hair is going. So you can watch as I do it now and just follow along with that. So what we're trying to achieve is some texture through the hair. We want to see some individual lines and we want to see some highlights and things through there as well. So just coming in now and marking out all the shadow areas and just doing a couple of little lines out towards the direction the hair is going in as well. So I'm going to use some E33, which is kind of a caramel-like colour, and I'm going to go over the top of those lines I've already done, and I'm going to make them a little bit longer and a little bit wider, going over the top of the previous layer of colour as well. So I don't want to try to blend those two together so they're smooth together because I want some texture. So just flicking over the top of them and not sort of blending them in nice and smooth. I'm going to go in now with some Y32. It's just a nice sort of light pale yellow, going over the top of those previous colours and into the highlights a little bit there, and just flicking a little amount over the top of those areas. I don't want to blend them in too much again because I do want a little bit of texture through there still. So again, you could come back in with those darker colours and just deepen those up a little bit if you'd like, just to give it a little bit more prominence, or if you think that the lines have blended in too much, then by all means go through and do another layer, because it will just darken those up a bit and just make it sort of a little bit more dramatic. I'm going to leave mine at the one layer for now, and I'm going to continue on with the rest of the image. So I wanted to kind of get this done kind of quickly so that you guys could get a go at it, having done the masterclass a week ago. Some of you may already be up to this section. So I'm using E71 now, and I'm just going over the trunks of all the trees in the background on the right hand side and just going over them here on the left as well. Just got some E79, and I'm just going to do some shadow and put some texture in the tree, just a couple of lines. Doesn't really matter if you do a pattern or anything there. I'm also going to use that to do the dark sections on these trees, just on the top layer there and also on the bottom layer. I'm going to come in with some E74 near the end and just bridge the gap between the two. So guys, I'm kind of a little bit sporadic here because I'm not really sure where to go to start with. So I decided to start from the bottom and work up, but starting with the brick that she's actually sitting on first. And also there's like a concrete sort of archway behind her as well. Well, I'm thinking that's what it is. That's how I see it. So I'm going to go in and do that as well. I'm using the greys here, warm greys. You could use other greys if you like. I chose warm because they're more earthy. They're a little bit more pinky toned. And I think that just suited the color of her dress and things like that a little bit better. So just using a warm grey here. I've got warm grey 7, so W7. I'm just going in and doing out some shadow areas at the moment. I'm going to come back in with W9 and deepen these up at a later stage, but I just want to mark them out first. So sometimes I do start lighter, and then as I look at it and have a step back from it, if I feel that it needs to be darker, I'll then go in with those darker colors just to deepen it up a bit. So for now, we're using the W7. So I'm just going to move down a level in color. I'm going to go to W5 and I'm going to go over the top of the previous color, and I'm just going to extend that a little bit further out from the areas I've put in. So I've kind of gone around the bricks a little bit and left some of the bricks sort of free. I'm going to go in and put a bit of texture in those in a little bit, and we're going to sort of make them a little bit lighter than the rest of it. But because she is sitting on this brick wall here, there's going to be a lot of shadow there anyway, so don't stress too much if you don't have any patterns or anything like that through it. Just sort of go in and put in the color for now. So I'm going to just line these little bricks out here. As I said, I'm just putting some little wiggly lines for some texture. I'm going to go over the top of everything now with some W3 and just blend in some of those things so they're nice and fuzzy. It kind of goes a little bit of a pinky color when you do it because it desaturates that darker color underneath. So having a look at it now, I'm going to go in and make it that deeper underneath her because I do believe that that shadow needs to be a bit darker. I've got W9 and I'm just going in to mark that out. You can then blend this off with the W7 again and the W5 just to get a nice smooth blend if you'd like. Or you can leave it nice and messy and rough like this too. Because it's a brick wall, it's going to have a lot of texture through it, so don't stress too much about it. So I've just got some W9 now, and I'm going to go in and mark out the shadow areas on this brick wall or concrete wall. I'm going to mark sort of a little bit of a shadow around the vines and things just to create a little bit more texture. So making it look like there's some light sort of varying throughout the image, it's going to give it a little bit more of an effect. It'll make it look a little bit more 3D and things like that. So I'm just going to the right of each of these trees and just adding this color in onto that wherever I can. So I'm just going to speed this up a little bit for you. So if you need me to slow it down, just slow or pause the video so you can see where I'm up to and what I've actually done if you'd like. Also too, there is the option to be able to slow down the video through YouTube as well. It can slow down the speed up to 1/4 of the speed, I think it is. So you check those functions out as well. Okay, so now I've done that, I'm going to swap over to W7 and I'm going to go over that W9 and spread that out a little bit. So just flicking my marker over it and making sure that it sort of fades to the next color nice and smoothly. And I'm going to do this all over the image that I've actually colored already. So all over the gray W9 that I've done and just sort of spreading this color out. Being quite rough here because I want a bit of texture in this wall. I want it to look old and I want it there to be dirt and roughness through it. So I'm just being really rough here. So I'm going to go over the rest of the leftover area with W5. I will put a little bit of W3 in there just to help make sure that's blended off nicely, and put a couple of real highlight sections in there. But all of the rest of this image, I'm going to put the W5. I will actually stop in a moment to fill out my marker, so there is a little bit of a pause, but I will fast forward this section for you as well. So I'm just being nice and gentle, going over the top of those previous colors and smudging and blending those out together. And I'm actually going to be really rough in the rest of the area because I want that texture as well. So just make sure you do go over the section where it does transfer from lighter to darker so that you get that blended nice and smooth, but you can be quite rough with how you're putting on the texture of that. So I've just swapped markers out to the W3, and I'm just going in and going over all of the sections that I may have slightly missed and just popping this in there. So there's a couple of spots where I actually left a little bit of a gap. I want to make those areas quite light, so I'm going to go in with this W3 and just push that ink around and make it nice and sort of smudged out and fuzzy in those areas. Just an apology on the video not being able to see some of that there. Sometimes I get carried away and I forget that I'm actually videoing, so I will move it again in a moment, but all I'm doing is filling in those areas that were blank still. So I've just moved the camera out a little bit there so you can see it looks quite rough. It looks a little bit old. It looks like there's some sort of, I guess, a mottly sort of look on it. It doesn't look nice and smooth and shiny, which I didn't want. I wanted it to look old and medieval like. So I'm going to go in now to all of these branches of these trees. I'm going to use the same color I used before on the other trees. I'm using E71 just to go in and line all of this out. So I'm going to cover all of the branch areas, and then we're going to go over with darker colors. Don't worry about your flowers for now. I will use a colourless blender to remove any colour that goes over the edges on those, but they're going to be bright pink, so you won't be able to see a lot of that anyway. So I'll just zoom back out a bit so that you can see that. At the moment the trees look like they're kind of blending in with that background, so we want to put a bit more dark in there just to give it that little bit more of light and shade, depth and things like that. It just will help pop it off the page a little bit more. So I'm using the E79 again to go into some shadow areas. I'm really just sort of going off one edge of each sort of section of plant. I'm not planning it or deciding that the light's coming from this direction or that direction. I'm just putting it in to create a little bit of texture and make it a little bit more interesting to the eye, which will make it pop off the page a little bit more. So using that E79 for that. After that, I'm going to use some E74 and I'm going to go and blend that out a little bit as well. So I've just got the E74 now, and I'm going to go over the top of that and just sort of spread this color out a little bit more over the rest of the branch. I'm going to leave a couple of light sections for the highlights, but I'm not too worried. I'm keeping it nice and rough and just popping the color in. Please don't worry about being neat and tidy here, because we're going over that brick wall and it's almost the same color. We want it to look rough and sort of, I guess, all over the place a little bit there, because the branches have got lots of texture. They'll have bark and marks and, you know, there'll be bits of twigs sticking out of them, things like that. So it's not going to be perfectly smooth. So I'm just going to grab my colorless blender and I'm just going to go into those flowers and get rid of some of that color out of the flowers, and also just down on the trees down in here, get rid of whatever's sort of run over a little bit there. The ink will just push straight out of these areas and back into where they're going. Don't put too much ink on, because you will put blotches on there if you put too much on. So I'm just going over those areas that I've gone over the lines and just sort of bringing that out a little bit. We're going to put some green in here, so you probably won't notice it much anyway. So guys, now we've neatened that up, let's do some of the plants down on the bottom section of the water there. So I'm going to put in first of all the hand. So I'm going to use, I've just got some E11 here, and I'm just going in and just sort of making a little bit of a hand shape. Just a little bit of an oval under the water, so it does look like her hand is actually sitting under there. So we're starting on the plants at the bottom now. I'm going to use some G17, and I'm going to do the shadow side of each of these pieces of grass or leaves, and I'm also going to put some veins and lines through the leaves. So just go ahead and follow along. I'm just going on the pick a side. I picked the right side of each of the leaves to do the shadow part, and then also anywhere where it's crossing over I might put a bit of a shadow there as well. Don't forget to draw out those leaves that are really big and have nothing in them. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. So there's just a little bit of some sort of willow sitting there. I'm just going to mark that out with some YR12 just to pop that in. I'm going to use some G14 to go over the remainder of the white areas on all of these leaves now. The only ones I'm going to leave a little section of are the ones that I've drawn in some veins as well. So I'm just going to use some BG53 just to fill out some of the spaces and gaps that didn't get filled out when I was doing the water, just to make them blend in nicely with the background water. Also putting a little bit of a shadow in over these areas here where the leaves would be hanging over the water. I'm just going to put a little bit of RV29 in the lip area here, and also a little bit of RV25, and I will put in some white gel pen just to put a little bit of a highlight on there. I do actually put some on and then wipe it off and redo it because I wasn't happy with the first lot. So I'm going to do some dabbing now. It's like a stippled effect. I'm just going to dot in this color on one side of each of these trees here just to create a little bit of shadow using the G17 now. Just missed a little bit of the tree here, but just putting some E74 in there for that. Just coming in and stippling in the G14 now over the top of the G17. I'm going to use a lighter green now. I've got YG03 and I'm going to go in and finish off the rest of this area here. So we wanted to have a little bit of shadow and some highlight on one side. The one in the middle I'm kind of going to do a little bit around that one. I'm going to go and put this on the left side now into this tree that's closer to us. Same thing, just stippling it in. Just grabbing some G07 and I'm just going to go in and try to create a little bit of shadow through these darker areas here. Stippling it in, so just dabbing that marker around. I'm now coming in with the G14 and going over the top of that again, still leaving some white gaps there for that really light colour. I'm just going to go back over the whole lot now into those white areas as well and over the darker areas with the YG03 just to get that in nicely. So we've got a bit of texture through the tree now. Just going to do another layer of G14, just to get that one through there as well. Just trying to create more depth. So the layering, then we've layered different colors on top of each other and then we're redoing them, but each time we do that dabbing or stippling, it's going to be a slightly different area to what we did previously. So we're going to create some more depth that way by building up on layers. I'm going to use the RV29 and the RV25 for these flowers here. I'm going to do the RV29 in the middle section of the flower, leaving the very center for some yellow, but just going around that very center patch there and putting some of that darker color in, and then using the lighter color on the very tips of the petals. We're going to put some Y08 in the middle of each of those flowers for the center of them. So we're almost at the end now. We've just got that background grass to do and the leaves and the tree parts around her now. So these bottom flowers here I'm doing blue. I want the middle section to be B66 for the darker blue. Then I'm going to blend that out a little bit with the B63, and then on the tips of the flowers we're going to use some B60. I'm going to use some Y08, and I'm just going to go into the center of these ones, and also I'm going to do a little bit on these funny looking side ones as well, just on the edge near the grassy part. And then I'm going to use some YR20 on the rest of that area. So when I did these leaves at the start, I left a couple of white spaces there for a really light colour, so I'm coming in with YG03 to fill those in now. So we're going to do the background grassy areas. I'm going to try to do light on the tops and darker as we come towards the shadow areas. So I'm just going to dot in, I guess, not really stippling, I'm kind of just sort of running the marker along these areas with YG03 to start with. So I wanted to create the sky here. So I'm using some Y11, and I'm just going in and just rubbing a little bit of this on a couple of spots in the sky. So they're kind of going to be yellow clouds. So I'm grabbing B40 and I'm just going to go in and mark out some cloud areas. So I'm just marking them in for now. I'm just using some wiggly lines in there to create a little bit of the shape of a cloud. And we're going to color around those clouds with a darker blue color. So at the moment I'm just marking them in. So it doesn't need to be perfect, just marking out a flatter area on the bottom of it and then making a little bit of a peak at the top and bringing it back down. So it's kind of like a triangle shape, but you know, clouds are kind of odd shaped, so it doesn't really matter what you put in here as long as it's kind of got a little bit of a flat bottom. I'm just lining out around those areas so that I can see them a little bit more clearly, and I'm going to go over the top of this blue area with the B000 because it's a little bit darker and it's a little bit easier to see. Before I do that though, I think I need to lighten off these Y11 areas that I've done. So I've just gone around that one for now to have a look how it looks, but I think we really need to bleed that off a little bit. So I'm going to use some Y000 over the top of that yellow to blend it out a little bit and make them a little bit softer. And then I'm going to use some colorless blender around that again to really make those edges nice and fuzzy. Once I've done that, then I can come back in with my B30 to do that sky. So now I'm coming in with that Y000, and as I said, I'm just going around the edges to soften it off and make it a little bit more fluffy. Now I've got the colorless blender and I'm going around that again to soften that off and make it look a little bit more fuzzy again, so it bleeds right out into the background now. So now I've done that, I've got the B000 this time, which is a little bit darker than the 40, and we're going to go around those clouds and over the rest of this blue sky here to create the background part of the sky. And we're leaving the middle of the clouds free for now. So you can really see now that I've done that where the clouds are. I'm using some BV40 just to go in and mark a few lines and make some sort of texture through there just to change that color roughly. It will allow it to look a little bit more fluffy, and the light and the shadows reflecting on it makes it sort of look a little bit more realistic. Not that it is realism, but yeah, just to get that color in there. I've also done it a little bit underneath those yellow ones as well. So I'm actually going to go into that grassy area at the back there, and I'm going to fill out everything else now with the Y11. I'm going to come back in with the darker colours in a moment to deepen the shadow areas up on the hills and things, but for now we're just going to go in and fill this colour out. So I've just got some G14 and I'm going to go into these shadow areas now. I'm going to blend those out with some YG03, going over the top of the previous colour and sort of dabbing and spreading that colour up towards the highlight area. And just coming back in and filling out the rest of that white area with the Y11. Just going to change to a more olive green now. I've got YG95 and I'm just going into the middle of each of these sections to put the colour in the middle of them, so to make it look a little bit like the leaf is sort of curling inwards. I'm going to do the little tiny leaves with this as well. I'm going to go over the top of this in a moment with some YG11. Just got the YG11 and I'm going over the top of that previous colour and extending it further out. So I'm filling up the remainder of the white area. I also filled in the YG95 in these grassy areas as well, just to show that they're different from the actual background section. Just coming in with G17 now, I'm putting in some shadow areas underneath where the leaves are overlapping each other, and also on the darker sections of the leaves above on the roses there as well. I'm going to do them right at the start of the leaf, and then we'll extend the colour out with a lighter colour later. I've got G07 and I'm just going over the top of the rest of the area and also going over the top of that shadow area as well. So we've still got a darker side to the leaves, but they are still fairly dark. So just grabbing some Y08 and just dabbing in the middle of each of these flowers. Just going over the top of that now. I was going to use the YR20, but I think it's a little bit light. So I've got YR12 to go over the top of that. So I'm just dabbing it in around from the center of the flower and just bringing it out and around to the back. So because there's lots of details in here, I didn't want to spend that time with individual flowers, but you could sit and work on them individually if you wanted and look at marking out shadow areas and things. But because there's such a large sort of, I guess, area where there's lots of detail, I'm able to sort of just go in and dab in the color and your eye will automatically sort of do the rest for you. So I've got YR00 and I'm filling out the remainder of these roses. Just dabbing over the top of the previous color and coming out over the leaf area that wasn't covered over. Just grab my white gel pen now. So I'm just coming over the rest of the image now to mark out any highlights I want to put in. I'm also just putting in some spots in the middle of the roses and also on the flowers above. So just sort of putting in some little finishing touches, some highlights on some areas of the image. So that's all that I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you do give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, click on subscribe. And also, if you want notifications when I upload new videos, you can also click on the little bell to get notifications. If you have any questions or anything that you'd like to request or ask, please let me know. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Vero. Come and join the Facebook group, and even check out Patreon, because we've got lots of videos there that are more full length and a lot more detailed for you, so you can learn a little bit extra rather than just doing these quicker videos. So that's everything that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.